different, I started to record in English. So this is the session that we have today. Luni is going to be presenting to us on 12 slides, pitch deck. And I think you're going to find this session very interesting, very useful, something that you can refer back to from now for many years on your business, and something that's going to give you hopefully a lot of path forward and a way to think about your business in a way that brings out new ideas and ways to communicate that you haven't before. I think that there's nothing more for me to say, but I always like to introduce, well, let me see. I like to introduce Samuel just for a second. If Samuel was there, I didn't see him recently. Samuel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here, Amanda.
I like to have Samuel give a little intro on what his thoughts are in this session as well, because he's seen it a couple of times over the years, and just think that you might have something interesting to add, Samuel. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much, Amanda, and happy to meet everyone. Yes, to me, this is one of those sessions that I don't want to miss, because it's the backbone of this program. As you realize, moving forward, we'll spend most of the time really focusing on the pitching now until the end of phase 2. So I really want to encourage everyone to be active in this session. Moving forward, ask as many questions as possible. Where it's not clear, please do let Luni or ourselves know, and we'll be able to support you. This session, the deliverable is one of the requirements, even as we move for phase 2, and also as you apply for the grant. So let's have it seriously. Otherwise, thank you so much. And back to you, Amanda, or to Luni.
Yeah, just a really fast one. Fabiana, Patrick has arrived. So are we ready to go with interpretation?
Yes, interpretation is going. I am adding Patrick now.
Okay, so watch it once you add him, because I'm not sure if you'll have to reselect French. Everybody might have to reselect French once you add him. So just watch that. I think now we're ready to go, Luni. Go ahead. Over to you. Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Today we're going to, as described, explain how to put together a pitch deck. It's a specific type of thing that's expected by investors and grantors and others. And I'm going to walk you through the process step by step. First thing you need to understand.
Premièrement, vous devez comprendre que la première.
Need this pitch deck, and you need to design it for them. And so what I'm going to show you today, in terms of those 12 slides, is specific for investors. They're expecting something that they've seen before, and you're going to deliver that to them, right? And the second thing you need to keep in mind is, what's the purpose of the pitch? Typically, it's for raising money, but there is such a thing as a sales pitch, which is to try and get a customer to join in. When you're recruiting like your management team, then often you're going to have to pitch them too. You're going to have to convince them to come and join your company. There's a lot of opportunities where you need to pitch your company to others, and you may need to tune the pitch depending on what that is. Third question, who's going to do the pitch? The expectation, let's just jump back and focus on that investor pitch. The expectation is that the founder is the CEO of the company and that person is pitching. And if you're not comfortable pitching, well, I'm sorry. But the expectation by investors is that you, the CEO founder, is the one who's going to pitch. And if you hand it off to someone else to do it, someone who's on your team but isn't a founder or isn't the CEO for that matter, you get dinged. It's a yellow flag. All right, what are you expected to know as you're pitching? The answer is everything. You're expected to understand your business and to be able to answer any question that the audience throws at you and answer it well. And it's fine if you can't. Well, no, it's not fine. It's okay. You can get around the fact that you can't by having the other people in the room who can answer the questions. And so you as CEO founder are the one who are taking the questions, and sometimes you can hand them off to others. But really the expectation is that you understand your business so well you can answer any question on any topic. Okay, that said, let's actually start by looking at a sales pitch instead of an investor pitch, because it's the best pitch of all time, right? There was somebody on earth who's passed away who is acknowledged as the best pitch man of all times, and that is Steve Jobs of Apple. And the best pitch that he ever did was the introduction of the iPhone in 2007. And I think I have a URL coming up for that, but if not, you can find it on YouTube. You type in Steve Jobs in 2007 iPhone, right? And what made his pitches amazing and great was a few things. But when you go back and watch them, and I highly suggest you go back and watch this pitch, if not all of his pitches, is the simplicity of his delivery. It's the point, and I'm not going to use that style as I teach you here today, but I do use that style when I pitch. Look behind him. Look at the graphic that is behind him, the slide that is behind him on this page, and count up how many words are there. That is the correct number of words for a pitch that's done in person, right? There's two kinds of pitches. Let's start there. There's two kinds of pitches. There's the one that you email to get the meeting, and then there's the pitch deck that you want to present at the meeting. And so here is the pitch deck that Steve Jobs is presenting in front of 1,000 people, right? And the whole world, right? This is a sought after pitch. That this was one that we were all waiting for in 2007. And actually, I think this one's 2010 because that's an iPad. And here's how many words he's telling us about on the screen about this device, which is none. He's just telling us a story with his words, and we're listening to him because there's nothing else to do except listen to him. And he's showing a great picture in the background. Now, occasionally he did put something on the screen. He put, when there was something he was talking about that was a number, he would put a very large number on the screen. And you should do the same thing with just a few words underneath to explain what the number's for. And occasionally he would put up some other words, but in this case, it's more of a graphic. His literal words, he said, is that Apple is the intersection between technology and liberal arts. And then 3 more sentences, he explained what that was. But the screen did not change. The screen continued to have this image. And you're probably not familiar with why is it black text on white rectangles. This is what a street sign looks like in San Francisco, California. Usually they're not this color. This is highly indicative of the city where he's based. And so he was just using that as you know, the people in the room understood that was the graphic representing streets. And on a very rare occasion, once per pitch, he would put up a graphic or put up a screen that had this many words on it. This is the style of bullet points that he used in his pitches. You can see it doesn't really even have the dots for the bullet points. And when he got this level of detail in his pitch, he would go through what these things were. But as you can see, there isn't a single sentence on this whole page. So he's just describing what the A4 chip does in this case. And here are 5 and only 5 things that are important that he wanted to share with the audience. And again, when it just comes to a price, he just puts the price on the screen. In dollars, we have the dollar sign, so you don't even have to say that this is currency. And that's it. He just, yep, it's $4.99. Boom, $4.99 is on the screen. Lots of screenshots of pretty images. You'll see that in some examples coming up. And a lot of storytelling. The key to a compelling pitch is not the graphics on the screen. I'm going to repeat that a few times here. The key to a great pitch is not the pitch deck. The key to a great pitch is a great story. And Steve was a great storyteller. So when you watch this, look at how simple his story is. Notice how few words he actually uses. Notice how often he's not speaking. Notice how often Steve Jobs stops speaking and pauses and lets the idea sink into the audience. And if you overdo it, it feels awkward. But if you get the timing just right, it feels like you are even more in tuned with what you're pitching, and it's even more important. If only you would stop talking for a moment and let it sink in. And then one thing you can't see when you watch this it just looks like he's just a natural born storyteller, and he's not. And you just can't see that from watching his Apple pitches. What he does on stage was practiced for 3 months. He went over that pitch over and over and over again and revised it over and over again for 3 months. Same level of practice and attention to detail as people do for a TED Talk. And I know this because I talked to the guy who made all the slides. His name's Wayne. He's made all the slides. He made all the slides for Steve's back to the days of Next, the company between Apple and Apple for Steve Jobs. Steve did not just put this together with Wayne and the next day pitch it or the next week pitch it. He practiced it. I'm going to say this one more time, for 3 months. And I'm sure, given Steve Jobs, he practiced it every day, 5 days a week, at least for 3 months. And that's what makes all the difference. So there is the URL. You will get a copy of these slides. Fabiana is going to post these slides. You can go and watch this. I highly advise you go watch at least this one, if not some more of the Steve Jobs pitches, and emulate the style. Right? Doesn't have to be the black sweater, but emulate the style of speaking less, putting less on your slides, and taking some breaks. All right, so let's see what that looks like in practice. Let's look at a pitch deck that's not quite as good, but one for a real company. This is a real fledgling from Fledge, and it's an African company. And I will try again. I've pitched this a few times, but I'm going to pretend to be David. We're going to pretend that it's 2020 because I don't want to change the dates every time I pitch this. And David's sitting in front of an audience at a pitch event, gets up on stage. And David's first line is, access to financial services is a fundamental human right. There's 1 billion people around the world who are farmers. It's the biggest industry on the planet, but it's operated by the poorest people on the planet. These people are generally unbanked. They don't have a bank account. They don't have a financial institution. 326 million people like this in Africa. 28 million just in Uganda, where I'm from. Remember, I'm pretending to be David here. And I know this because my mother is one of them. Right? That's me and my mother there. Now, what she does have access to are SACCOs, which are saving and credit co-ops. These are groups of farmers who come together to save their own money together, to lend to each other together. And the SACCOs have been around for decades. And the problem with SACCOs is that they're paper-based, that one of the farmers is doing the back-end processing on a pad of paper, making it terribly inefficient. And between just losses because of mistakes and losses on purpose, a lot of money goes missing in these SACCOs. So we have a solution to that at Nsumbuko. It's called MOBIS, the Mobile Banking and Information Software. It's a modern cloud-based software that we sell to the SACCOs so they can do all the processing online. And we provide this connected to the mobile phones so that the farmers can have access to this in the fields, on the farms. So it provides benefits for both the SACCOs and the farmers. For the SACCOs, it builds trust, right? There's transparency now, there's trust built into the system, and it's far more efficient. And for the farmers, the reason they like it is because they can see their balance at all times. They don't have to trust that it's sitting on a piece of paper and the paper hasn't been tampered with. It's really simple for them. They can just go to their mobile phone. They can see their account. If they want to connect to mobile money, they can make payments. They can take loans out right on their mobile phones. The opportunity for this is huge because there are 5,000 SACCOs in Uganda alone, and then 300,000 more in Kenya. Over there, they call them chamas, but they are the same thing. Business model is pretty simple. We charge $1,000 per year per SACCO for the software, and then we charge 0.5% per transaction for the money moving in and out. Now, we've only been doing this for 9 months. And in those 9 months, we have gotten the software in the hands of 500 SACCOs. They have 40,000 farmers that they're working with. we are controlling and managing $500,000 in savings, and we're managing $200,000 of that as loans. It's working. It's working as expected. So we earned $50,000 last year doing this with those 40,000 farmers. And this year we expect that to grow fivefold to $250,000 and also grow fivefold the number of farmers to 200,000. And in 3 years, we expect it to grow tenfold more to $2.5 million of income for us and 2 million farmers out of the about 10, 12 million farmers in Uganda. Hi, my name is David Opio. I'm not going to try and do the last name again. We have a great team that's building this. This is all in Uganda for Ugandans. And we have a great partner, which is the government of Uganda, because they know that the SACCOs have issues. And so they've passed a bill last year, passed a new law that said all the SACCOs have to be up on the cloud, electronic, in the next 5 years. And there's a list of companies that are endorsed by the government to do this, and Nsumbuko is top of the list. In fact, at this point, we're the only one on the list. We also just completed the Land Accelerator network in Seattle. So we have support and a small investment from them. And we are raising another $250,000 of investment capital as a Series A with $1 million pre-money valuation. First $75,000 is already committed and in the bank. And with that money, we will be adding some new services to this system, such as health savings accounts and health insurance, and then add to our marketing and sales in order to grow the number of SACCOs and farmers that are using this to meet that projection. So if you have any questions, I'm open to them now. And again, I'll remind you that Nsumbuko is here because access to financial services is a fundamental human right. Thank you. So that's what a pitch looks like and should sound like, more or less, right? I'm not practiced on that one too much. I helped write that one in, I think, 2014. And I'm not David Opio. But more or less, that's what it sounded like. And you can, if you search for Nsumbuko and Fledge, you'll find him pitching that on stage in Seattle. Okay, so were all the topics covered? I said there's an expectation here. And here is the list of topics that is expected, and more or less the order that's expected of them. There isn't a specific order, but it tends to come in one order. And so did we understand with that pitch what the opportunity was? Did we understand how the company makes money, how it earns revenues, how it charges, right? Is it a subscription? Is it a one-time fee? Like, that needs to be in that pitch. Is the projection reasonable? So 10 times growth in 3 years is a bit fast, but there was a big opportunity. They didn't need 5,000 SACCOs to get to $2.5 million. But it was a pretty aggressive timeline. And in fact, they did not hit it. They did not get that big that fast. And did it finish with an ask at the end? And was the ask clear? Did we know what they were asking for? So rather than just going and ask these open-ended questions, let's go back through that pitch one more time, slide by slide, and I'll explain why it looks like the way it looks and how you can copy this. Okay, so one more time, slide by slide. Okay, rule 1. Each slide exists to tell one piece of the story and just one piece. And so what you should do is, after you've made your slide deck and after you've compared it with that list I just showed you, you ask the question, what is this slide for? Why does this slide exist? And if there's 2 answers to that question, oops, sorry about that. If there's 2 reasons it exists, you probably should have 2 slides. And if you can't justify why this slide is here, you probably have an extra slide. And it's pretty easy to flip through that and see that. So here we go. First slide is the opening slide. It's your first impression. This is where you make the first impression. So when you're probably going to email this to investors before the meeting, the goal of that email is to get the meeting. And so this is the first thing they see after the email, and it needs to make a good first impression. So what you should do on this slide, on the opening slide, is really simple. Good logo, And it used to be hard to get a good logo, but oh my God, it's gotten so much easier now. AI will make you a good logo. Go ask an AI. Go ask Google Bard or Bing or any of the new AIs. Ask them for a logo. Tell them what your company does. Ask them to make you a logo. Pick one that looks good. Right? You can edit it if it's not perfect, but that used to be a stumbling block. This is a decent logo, but it looks like a farming company. All right. What else we see on this slide is there's a tagline. That opening line is here. We want a hint on the opening slide of what you do, what field you're in. In this case, it's financial services. The name of the person presenting and a date. The name doesn't matter. The date is there so that later, because odds are the investor is going to say no. Odds are you're not going to get the grant. Odds are that person is not going to join your company. But you're probably going to talk to that investor again someday. They're going to go, oh, Ensombuco. Yeah, I remember that one. And they're going to search for it and pull it up and they go, oh, okay. Well, last I saw it, it was Q1 2020. And so if we're here again back in 2023, we're going to go, oh my God, it's been 3 years. Well, let me look through this real quick and see how much they've changed. Because ideally, if it's a new email, there's been some new piece of information and they can compare it to the pitch deck. All right, so for each slide, you'll see this in the slides when you download them. For each one, there's three slides after each and every slide in this lesson. The blue one is what's expected to be seen on the slide, and I said that it's the logo, a hint, presenter name, and date. What you should say. Okay, so important piece of advice. Do not start with "Thank you for the opportunity to pitch." That is part of the culture, I understand. I totally get that is the culture in Africa, to thank the audience for being there, to introduce yourself, to do a whole bunch of things before you start pitching. And I'll tell you that none of them will get you any money. Following those standards and cultures will not get you any money, not from grantors, not from investors. What will get you money is being interesting. So what you want to start with is a great opening line. If you remember the first week, the warm-up, we were talking about one-line pitches. Whatever that great opening line is from your one-line pitch, that's what you can reuse here. If you don't have one, literally the best thing you can do is not say anything on the first slide and just go to the second slide. It is not useful to introduce yourself at this point. Anything else you say is just going to get the audience who's used to seeing these pitches, just get them antsy and want you to finish already. We see hundreds or thousands of pitches per year. We don't want to see another one usually, and not unless it's interesting. So be interesting. Okay, the third and green slide tells you what it should look like. So again, great logo, a couple words, and a date. And we're on to slide 2. Slide 2 is the problem slide. Stories should start with a problem. Right? It's the most compelling way to get people sucked into your pitch, is to think of it as a story. Don't think of it as a pitch. And you want your protagonist of your story to fall into a hole. That's just the way it goes. And there needs to be some reason why this company exists, and you're going to explain it here. This one's okay. It doesn't match the company perfectly, but it's okay. And the other way you get people sucked into this is to have some good pictures, or ideally one good picture. It's much better to have one great and compelling picture than 6 okay pictures. These were just pulled off the internet. This is David and Otim, because we couldn't find one more picture. Or David likes his picture. But much better, as you'll see in another version, another thing I'll show you in a bit. Better to have just one picture. So you want to explain a problem. If you're going to have some words, and I'll go back, there are some words on the slide. They're at the top. This slides have a black background on purpose to make it so that the words kind of just blend in. Do not use a PowerPoint template. It does not make your PowerPoint look any better. It makes it look worse. All black or all white is the best backgrounds. And you'll see this pitch deck actually uses both. So black background here, a few words in white. And I'm just going to repeat those words or something like them when I'm pitching. No more than 2 sentences. Again, there's a difference between the pitch deck you email and the pitch deck you present. In an email pitch deck, you can have a paragraph. In a pitch deck that you present, you don't want to have a paragraph, because if there's a paragraph of text, the audience is going to read it. And you don't want them reading it, you want them listening to you. Now, if it's a well-known problem like climate change or poverty, you don't need to speak for a minute on that, right? Rule of thumb, if you have 5 minutes to pitch, you should spend no more than 45 seconds on the problem. If you have 10 minutes to pitch, you should still spend ideally no more than 45 seconds on the problem, but maybe 1 minute. One mistake that make who've not done this over and over again is they dwell on the problem for a very long time. They'll dwell on the problem for 2 or 3 slides, if not 5 slides. They might take half the pitch time to talk about the problem. That's nice, but nobody writes a check for the problem. They write a check for the solution. So do this as quickly as you can. Get through the problem as quickly as you can. And if it's climate change, you can literally just throw up the slide and say climate change. When I'm pitching Africa Eats, and I'm pitching it to someone who has lived in Africa, or who invests in Africa, or who knows Africa really well, I will literally say, the problems we're solving are hunger and poverty, and I'm not going to explain those to you. You know them as well as I do. Next slides. And what should it look like? Again, 1 big image is good. If you're solving 2 problems, then 2 images, one on the left and one on the right. As little text as you can. The simpler you make it, the smarter you look. Again, go back to Steve Jobs and look at how many words he had on his slides. Okay, the next slide does not always have the same purpose. There's a few different things you can do on the next slide, on slide 3. One thing you can do is introduce the customer. Introduce the person whose problem, introduce the person who has this problem that you just described. If you don't have that customer, if you don't have that person, then you can describe instead a trend. You can show why this problem is growing and why it's important to solve it now. Or you can show something that's like a trend, but it's the right time to solve this problem. There's a few different ways you can go, but the point is you're moving the story from problem to solution, stopping off with something that also grabs the audience and sucks them in further, makes them understand that this isn't statistics. This is about mom here. And oh my God, I had a cohort of fledglings in Seattle, and everybody wanted to tell the story of their mom. And that's one more thing you can't do. You can't all tell the same story. So I think David here got to tell the story of his mom and one other. And everybody else, I said, no, just find someone else to talk about. Mom can be compelling, but mom's not the only way to tell stories. So anyway, we're on the slide. This in case we're basically working down from, a third of all Africans, 28 million Ugandans, and mom. It's a progression that helps suck the audience into this is a problem for this one person you should care about. It doesn't work as well when I'm presenting because it's not actually my mom. So who has this problem? Ideally a real person. I've seen this pitched as 3 different people, 3 different slides, 3 different people, or 1 slide split into 3 parts. Has to be 1 or 3, can't be 2 or 4. Just trust me on that. Can't be 2. Has to be 1 or 3. And all the words you say have to be words that make it feel real. And again, 1 big image, 3 images is best. As little as a little text is needed, but as little as possible. And again, simple makes it smarter. Oh, and the last bullet on here is, by the time you get to slide 3, you should have figured out what format you're going to use for your slides. And so in this case, we're using an image that goes from wall to wall, from edge to edge, and text generally at the top. And if we need it, more text at the bottom. And you see every slide is in that same format, same font. The text is centered. Like there's no one way to do the slides. You'll see in the I'll use a different format in the next one I show you. But just be consistent in the format. All right, here we're on slide 4. Again, slide 4 doesn't always have one specific purpose. Sometimes this slide isn't even needed. But in this particular story, what was interesting is to tell the story of problem, customer, solution, but this is the existing solution. And we're going to explain why this solution isn't the right solution in words. And then we're going to explain what does work better. That's not a very common pattern, but it's useful in this particular pitch deck. So here we are on the wrong solution. And again, this might be where you bring in the trend instead. So it might be problem, customer, trend, solution. And we're going to, I already explained that. What are you going to say? Again, story. Actually, the easiest way to do this well is to not do the slides first. Do the story first. Sit down and write the story that you want to tell the audience that covers all these talking points. Start with a problem, get to a solution, talk about how you make money and whatnot, but do it as a written story and then make slides that match. That makes a much more compelling pitch deck. So what do you talk about on slide 4? You read your script. You don't make it sound like you're reading a script, but you're just reading your script. And design-wise, you're just trying to stay consistent. Now is not the time to bring in a new format. We'll get to that in a slide or two. Okay, and in fact, on this particular slide deck, we change colors and go to white on the solutions. We just came up with that on the fly. It's the only pitch deck I've ever done that does that. But it's the one I share. So there's a lot of pitch decks out there that do this. So here we are now on the solution. It's a little subtle color change to make the audience understand we're doing something new. We got the logo of the product here. It's not a very compelling logo, but that's the logo. We still got the company logo in the corner. Not necessary it's not necessary to put your company on every slide. It's not uncommon, but it's not necessary. We've actually changed the format here as well. We are not going edge to edge on the pictures now. We're putting 2 pictures with some white space on the side. And it looks pretty centered to me on my screen, although I'm just noticing that there's more white space here than here, which is not good, but you know, the pictures aren't the same size either. It's not perfect, but it's close enough. Anyway, we're finally presenting the solution. And when we're presenting the solution, this pitch deck's also not perfect in this case. We want to start with a high-level description of what it is. We don't start with a screenshot. We don't start with a diagram. We start with a very high-level description of what it is we're solving. This is the mobile banking and information software. Not a great name either, but that's what it is. It's Mobis. And there's a sentence on the bottom that describes what it is. And if you remember, when I presented it, that's exactly what I said, right? Or very close to what I said. I'm expecting they're going to read it. It's kind of rude to read the words back to them, so I might say it in a slightly different manner, but I'm going to make sure I say cloud-based and mobile. Those are the 2 keywords. Now, again, in terms of impressions, this is the first time they're seeing the solution, most likely. Don't expect that they're going to go to your website and read the whole thing. If you're sending an investor a slide deck, they're going to flip through the slide deck. That's what they're used to. And so at this point, we just want enough to make them want to see more detail. That's kind of the theme here of pitches. The purpose of the pitch is to get to the next meeting. The purpose of I didn't say that yet. The purpose of this first pitch deck is not to get a check. You're never going to get a check on one pitch deck. Not going to happen. Not even at a business plan competition, you're still going to get Q&A. The point of the first pitch deck is to get you to the next meeting. The point of the pitch deck you send in an email is to get to the first meeting, to get to the meeting where you can present this. Personally, I don't send pitch decks in email. Personally, I send one-pagers in email because that's easier for people to skim, get them just enough information they want to see the details. The details is the pitch deck, and then I walk them through the pitch deck. Okay, and in terms of again, what you're going to say the next piece of your story, which just talks about a little bit of this solution, and then show it. Ideally, show it. In this case, it's software. There's not much to show. So we're just showing someone on a computer. Again, I think we just pulled those off the internet. Happy, smiling people, happy customers. Okay, and then we'll go to the next level of detail on the solution. This is kind of the minimal next level of detail. This is a benefit slide. They're not the best list of benefits, but this is what he had. Ideally, we would have screenshots here. Ideally, we would have a screenshot or 2 or 3 of the software that's in the cloud for the SACOs, and a screenshot, maybe even on a separate slide, or screenshots for the farmers. But we put this together when we were in Seattle. We didn't have the screenshots, so we didn't do it. We went for the next best thing, which is a list of benefits. Whatever it is, it's one level deeper. And you can go one level deeper past this as well. Sometimes 3 slides is better to show off your product. And again, you're just going to go down and answer the question of how does that work, or why does that work, or whatnot. And in terms of design, it's ideally pictures of what you do. And if you're growing plants, that's pictures of the seedlings. Maybe it's 2 pictures, a picture on the left of seedlings and a picture on the right of the mature trees. Picture on the left of the organic waste, picture on the right of the compost. Like, nice and simple. Finally, we get to some numbers. If you remember, Steve had big numbers, and I mean big numbers. Like, the reason why the 300,000 number is on this slide is that 5,000 isn't a big enough number. No matter how big we make the font, the number 5,000 just isn't a big, compelling number. And so we added 300,000 underneath it because it's a bigger number. Literally, this company, here we are, I think they came to Fledge in 14 or 15. Here we are many, many, many years later, and I don't think they're in Kenya yet. But we put it on the slide because 300,000 is a big number. So this is the opportunity. This is what you need to show something that's a big number that makes the investors want to lean in on this and learn more. That's all it is. It has to be a real number, but it's something in the story, something related to your business that makes investors think this could be big. Right? Sometimes it's a top-down analysis. Sometimes it's a bottom-up analysis. No matter what, it's a big number. And literally, you're going to show it on the screen as a big number. The design should be 100-point font, 150-point font, some gigantic number on the screen. Now, this is also some numbers, but this is a different purpose. This is the business model. How do you make money? It needs to be really clear in your pitch how you get paid. And so this is a 2-sided business, what we call it, when there's 2 sets of customers you have to appeal to. In this case, we sell to the SACOs, but we charge the farmers. And we explain it with how many words we have here? Like 7 words. No sentences. It's obvious to the audience that this is a business model. And even if it isn't, it doesn't matter, because you're not going to get them to the next meeting based on your business model. Right? So how do you make money? If you have a very complicated way to make money, don't explain it. Simplify it down. If you sell small, medium, and large, you can say that, but then just talk about the average price or the one that most people buy. If you have a 2-sided market, you can do 2 slides if you need it. But you can, again, I'm using a lot of slides that are just left and right in this case, right? Widescreen slides, they leave you plenty of room to do left and right. We're explaining how people pay you. And the design will be as simple as you can make it. If you have to draw a diagram because you have a very complicated business, draw the diagram. Draw with pen and paper and take a picture and put it up on the screen. Draw it in a drawing program. Try not to use the pieces of PowerPoint. That just doesn't. They just don't look good. So try not. Although they exist in PowerPoint. And they are used quite often. Try not to use them. They just don't look good. Okay, and then we get to one of the most important slides there is, which is called the traction slide. Does any customer actually care about your business? And this is very important to investors. It used to be, when I was younger, I've been doing this for 30 years. 25 years ago, this didn't exist. 25 years ago, investors would invest when we just had an idea. Those days are 20 years ago. 20, 25 years ago. Now you have to have a company that's up and running with customers to get funding. And so you got to show what that traction is. That's the word everyone's using. And so it could be one number. It could be 500 SACOs. That could be all we put on the screen. That'd be pretty compelling. But we wanted to show, well, it's a two-sided business. We needed farmers too. We got 40,000 farmers in 9 months. That's pretty compelling. We could have just said 500 SACOs, 40,000 farmers and stopped at that. But it's a financial service company. We wanted to show that we've been trusted with some money. We could have just put 540,000 and 500,000 on this as three numbers. That would have been fine. But what we chose to do was put all four because we wanted to hint that there's more to this than just savings, that it's actually savings and loans. So we put the number in for loans. And having four big numbers on the screen makes it feel like this is more real. As that's all you're going to show. The point of this slide is to show proof that anyone cares. And even if it's just 3 customers, giant 200-point font, 3 customers. If it's a new company, if it's a 5-year-old company, that's not going to work. You got to show something else. 50,000 seedlings. Something that shows that customers are believing in this business. And what you're going to talk about are those customers. You don't have to just read the numbers. You can tell a story of a happy customer, right? What you tell in your words does not have to exactly match what's on that slide. Not always. And best design for the traction slide is numbers or a graph. If you have a graph of monthly increases or quarterly increases or seasonal increases, go ahead and make a graph. Graphs are powerful. You'll see one of those in a minute as well. This is one way that I like to show growth. So you can do this in a graph. This is financials. This is historic and future financials all in one slide. And you can go put it in Excel or Google Sheets and go make a graph. That's totally acceptable. I like to use this swoosh model, and I use this a lot these days because it just implies up and to the right without being precise, right? Because we don't know what's going to happen in the future. We're not trying to be precise. We're trying to be, get in the ballpark of what we're expecting. But what's important on the growth slide is to show both where we are and to show some proof. If there's a 2-year-old company, I would actually want 2 data points for the history. Look, we were $10,000 2 years ago, and we grew 5-fold to $50,000. That's good. That's showing some proof. And then we're going to stick with that 5-fold growth, which is crazy high. It's on the border of reasonable given the opportunity size in Uganda, but it's bordering on a little too high. 50, 200, 2 million probably would have been more believable and more higher odds of actually hitting it. But this is aggressive, but not crazy. If this was 50,000, 2 million, 25 million, then that would be crazy, and the investors would just quietly put it on the pass pile. They would not write back to you saying, sorry, your projections are too high. They would just literally just put it on the pass pile as being unrealistic. What is realistic? Doubling every year. Tripling is possible. It's really stressful. I don't suggest it, but it's not unreasonable. 5-fold growth one time and then doubling or tripling after that is reasonable. And 10-fold growth in 3 years. Yeah, that's tripling 3 years in a row. Right. So that's it's doubling 3 years in a row is 8-fold. So it's 2.5 times growth 3 years in a row. That's reasonable. That's in the right realm. So this jump 10-fold, that's 3 years apart. It's doable. Hard, but doable. And that's the point of the financial projections, just to show that there's a big enough opportunity that investors should join in. And so if your opportunity was 50,000, 60,000, 70,000, yeah, you're never going to get an investor. It's just not a big enough opportunity. If it's 50, 75, 100, still too small. If it's 50, 200, 400, you're bordering on too small. It's still, you have to show a big enough growth that it makes sense for an investor to provide you money especially given the money you're asking for in a few slides. They all have to match up. It all has to make sense as a cohesive whole. And then if you notice, there's also KPIs on here. If I flip back one more time, it wasn't just amount of money. It was also a key performance indicator in this case, which is farmers. Right? And the numbers match. Like we went 5-fold in money and 5-fold in farmers. We went 10-fold in money and 10-fold in farmers. We're not opening up a question on how can you get from $250,000 to $2.5 million if this went from 200,000 to 300,000 farmers. That would be opening up a very big can of worms, as we say, and making people ask, well, how is that possible? So in this case, we're keeping everything consistent. And I already talked about what the talking points are. And in terms of design, as long as it goes up and to the right, it's good. There's lots of ways to show this, but it has to go up and to the right. That's just what the expected graph looks like. Okay, finally, we get to a slide where we introduce the speaker. So I told you, don't introduce yourself at the beginning. Doesn't help. Introduce yourself on the team slide. Where should you put the team slide? That's always an open question. It goes somewhere in the middle. It goes somewhere in the middle where it's not getting in the way of the rest of the story, because it's usually getting in the way of the story. What do you say? What does the slide look like? Yeah, CEO is bigger, not necessarily this much bigger, but again, David liked his picture. So CEO is bigger than the rest of the pictures. The team is shown either as one big team or lots of headshots. Ideally, people are smiling. That's a good smile. That's a nice smile. She's got a smile. He's a little bit too serious. So is she. Smiling is good. Notice we don't even have any names of these people. The audience really doesn't care about the names of the people. We just want to know there's a team. We don't need to know who they are. We don't need to know what they do. A common question that will be asked of the team later, if we like the company, is what does everybody do? What roles are you missing? Those are all good follow-on questions, but we don't need to answer those questions in this pitch. We just need to show there's a team. So hi, my name is David Opio, whatever my last name is. I'm the co-founder CEO. My other co-founder is O-Team. He's great. And we put together a team of 7 people to build this company and move on. And so that's it. The point of this is to show there is a team. If you are all alone, you're not going to get funded. You have to have a team. If you're all alone, go spend your time trying to find the team and pitching people to join your team as opposed to pitching for money. You won't find money as a single entrepreneur or as a single person team. We have a great team is what almost everybody says. It's a total cliche line, but it works just fine. And you're going to do this slide in 20 seconds, right? 1 minute if you have a 20-minute pitch, but as quickly as you can. Headshots. We want to see pictures of people. We don't need to see their names and titles. I've seen too often a team slide that's just names and titles. Totally useless. I want to see people. I want to see people's pictures. If you have a few advisors, stick them on there as well. You don't need a separate slide for your advisors. Everybody on one slide is best. Then we have this slide in this pitch deck, which is not normal, but it was so important in the story to say that all the SACCOs have to pick a piece of software in the next 5 years that we made a slide for just the government of Uganda. Typically what we would do on the next slide would be accolades, partners, other logos, and we would put these all on one slide. But in this case, we did this one all by itself. And then the only other thing we had to talk about was Fledge at this point in this company's life. And this was presented on the Fledge stage. So we put the Fledge slide on here. This should be one slide. And there should be like 2 or 3 more logos if you have any other partners. Any ministry that has said they like you, you should put the Land Accelerator logo on there now. If you don't have enough logos, put the WRI logo on there as well. You're welcome to put the Fledge logo on now. This is a Fledge program as well. You want to have a bunch of images and logos to show that other people care about this company, because investors like to follow others. That's really all it really, the investors don't want to go first. Investors want to follow success. So you're going to show a great team, and then you're going to show a bunch of other organizations that care about you, so that the investors can go, oh, okay, there's lots of groups that like this company. I'll be one of those two. And you don't really have to say much. We have a lot of partners. We won some awards. We got a grant, like whatever it is that the logos represent. We just finished an accelerator program. Again, one sentence is fine, and then move on. Finally, we get to the ask. So this has to be the penultimate slide, the slide before the title slide at the end. You're going to end on the ask. Often I will build up to this by doing financials. I'll have team and then financials and then ask. That flows pretty well. But the order, once you have all your slides, you can move the slides around and see if it makes a more compelling version, a more compelling order, more compelling flow. But you're always going to finish on ask. The expectation is after ask, you'll have a closing line, and that's it. On that ask slide, you have to have a number. How much are you asking for? The words you're going to say are, we are raising. Not we're looking for, not we're seeking, not anything that sounds like charity. You're going to use the words, we are raising, because that sounds like you're in the process of raising, which you are, because you're pitching. So we're raising $250,000. Ideally, it would be equity or debt. This implies equity the way it's worded here. And then the other two things that need to be on the slide are terms, if you have them. So this is Series A preferred shares, million pre-money, and 70. Those are the terms. Ideally, something hinting about how much is already committed. If that's big enough, we would put that here. $250,000 for 75,000 committed. If we were higher than that, it would be $250,000. We're raising $250,000. The first $150,000 is already committed. We put that right here underneath the number. And then use of funds. What are you going to spend it on? Just a list of things. We don't need a, you'll see one where we have a chart, but we don't necessarily need that level of detail at this point. We just need to know what's going to get spent on. And ideally, it's more than two things. This is not a great ask slide, but it's good enough. Okay, and with an ask, we are raising. It's right there on that slide. So if you can't remember what that phrase is, go back and pick it up here. And you get to fill this page with as many words as you need, but it's not a paragraph again, it's a lot of bullets. And then we end with a slide that looks exactly like the first slide, just on the top at least, and then has contact information on the bottom. So we're gonna, literally the way I make these ending slides is I make a copy of the opening slide. I might move the logo up a little bit to make space, but I take a copy of the opening slide so that it looks almost exactly the same as possible. And then you just put in information at the bottom for contact. And Dave is no longer there, and I think I changed some digits in his phone number, so don't go calling him. And that's it, and then you're done. On that final slide, what you say ideally is a closing line. Most people just say, do you have any questions? Thank you for your time. Do you have any questions? Is okay. But ideally, you have a closing line that matches your opening line somehow. And I said when I pitched this one, and so now I hope you understand how financial services are a fundamental human right. Something like it, something playing off that opening line. And I already described that. Okay. In this pitch, we did not cover all 12 topics. There was a topic called competition, and we didn't have it in this pitch deck because we only gave him 5 minutes to pitch it. There are two ways to show competition. And I don't have a competition slide for Ensembuco, so I use a competition slide from another presentation. There's two ways to describe competition. One is called a magic square. In a magic square, you pick two topics, two benefits, two somethings that are they're measured on a continuum. Your company's in the top right corner based on these two measures. Your competition is not in the top right corner. That's all. That's how it works. And Usually your competition's scattered around. In this case, it's kind of a continuum up and to the right. The other way to describe competition is called a competitive matrix. In a competitive matrix, the competitors are listed in the columns and the benefits are listed in the rows. Logically, you could switch that, but don't. The way it's expected is that the competitors are in the columns and the benefits are in the rows, that there's 5 to 7 benefits, not more than that, that your company is the leftmost column. Of course, your company could be in any column, but the norm in this form is that your company is the leftmost column. And you don't do everything listed. You specifically pick something that's useful that you don't do. Because if you do everything on this chart, and this is Harvey balls, they're called. You can just do check boxes. But if you check off everything in every row, then nobody believes your competitive matrix. The point of showing a competitive matrix is not to describe why you're better than your competitors in every single way. The point of a competitive matrix is, or the magic square, is to show that you understand that there are competitors. You understand what those competitors, their benefits, and that you've done the homework. And so all the point of the slide is that you've done some competitive analysis. And you're going to spend very little time describing it. And personally, I love these slides because I will just know from the research, 100 things that I could talk about. And I'm going to pick 2 or 3 at most. And I'm just going to pick them, and I'm going to pick different ones each time. I personally don't like to do the same pitch every time. So I'll just pick 3 interesting ones that I haven't done recently, and I'll say those and I'll move on. And sometimes people will stop and say, oh, can you, well, what about that? It's great. And then you can answer that, whatever their question was, and move on. And then again, there's only 2 ways to show this. I've seen a couple other variations. Most of the time, those other variations are bad. Occasionally, someone will come up with something amazing. Just pick one of these 2. It's much simpler. Okay, and with that, those are the topics that need to get covered. And that's what's expected by the investor audience. They've seen hundreds of these. If you skip something, they will feel like you missed something. They might not be able to name what it was, but they'll feel like, oh, well, you didn't do the long-term competitive advantage. We skipped that one as well, but that's more of a tech piece. Okay, so let's show you one more time what this looks like in real life before I open it up to questions. See, the chat window is full of stuff. So here is a company called Truck. I'm not going to pitch it. I'm just going to show it to you. Truck Rwanda. It's a food and ag logistics company. Got started in 2020. This entrepreneur is amazing. He has built over $3 million of revenue in 2 businesses so far in Rwanda. Truck was started at nothing in 2020, did $2 million of business last year, year 3. Bootstrapped most of the way. Great entrepreneur, not a great pitcher. Just he does not tell stories on stage in the most compelling manner, and is not great at making slide decks. So he sent me this slide deck and said, can you please help? So here's his opening pitch, opening slide. I know the logo is good because I made the logo, so I like this logo at least. It's got 2 meanings to it. If you can't see it, staring you right in the face. Truck, it's a trucking company. Tanzania, Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya. It's right there, right underneath it. So here we got the truck pitch deck. It's March 2023. It's almost brand new. Who's pitching it? No idea. You forgot to put that on there. Here's the problem. There's a lot of words to read. We have a very large truck logo for some reason. There's a lot of words to read. It's not pretty the way it's shown on here. We see some rotting tomatoes. Here's a solution. It's trucks. Okay, I don't quite understand why we cut off the front of this truck. But there's a decent picture of a truck. We have a little story of how it grew. 4 trucks to 14. more details about the solution. This is a temperature sensor. Apparently, that's important. It's a refrigerated trucking company. How do we make money? There's 5 ways we make money. Big white blank space here is not compelling, but 5 ways we make money. Traction. Okay, $2,136,572 of revenue. We didn't need that level of precision because, in fact, I'll guarantee you that's not the revenues, because the revenues were earned mostly in francs, Rwandan francs. So this isn't the actual revenues down to the dollar. It's an estimate of the revenues. How many farmers we assisted, clients, and whatnot. It's a lot of good details, but clearing branch 1 is not compelling. Cold room 10 is pretty compelling. 14 trucks is, starting to get compelling. That's if this was a just $2 million number across the top of the page, that'd be more compelling. Here's that competitive matrix. Really hard to read. And too many items. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. It's just too many. 7 at most. It is Truck Rwanda leftmost column though, which is good. Now we'll get to market size. So we kind of went backwards. This should have been the opportunity size that we had in the other pitch deck near the beginning. But we do have a nice map showing something. Here's the team. Hervé's smiling. We got really weird collection of pictures here. Like the CEO is the smallest and it gets bigger as we go down. So that's weird. Lots of words about each person, right? I don't know about you, but I don't need this much detail about the marketing manager. Here's a very complicated ask slide. So I think what he's asking for is $5 million, but we're missing the dollar sign. Do keep in mind that we who think in dollars like dollar signs to know the numbers in dollars. Here's a use of funds. And then here we have, remember I told you each slide has one purpose. So this is what I think an ask slide at the top, and then projected revenue in 3 years on the bottom means that this is also a financial projection slide. And that's 2 reasons. You can't have 2 reasons for one slide, so this should be 2 slides. And then the contact page doesn't look like the opening page, but it's obviously a contact page because it says so at the top. That's what he sent me. And here's what we came up with as a alternative version to fix it. So how's that for a much more compelling opening slide? So we got Truck Rwanda, we got a picture of a truck, and this is an actual picture of an actual truck with the truck logo on it.
Et avec le logo de truck dessus.
The perfect truck logo from the graphics.
Donc, vous pouvez juste pousser le véritable logo de truck.
Here's the problem. It's the same picture.
Voici le problème, c'est la même image que tout à l'heure, mais l'image est maintenant grande et petite en même temps. Donc, on peut mettre dans les 2 extrémités. Et il y a eu une révision du texte. Et les mots clés sont en gras. Et les agriculteurs peuvent présenter ça. Et quand vous lisez, vous allez directement au problème. La solution également, vous avez d'un côté une image de truck et ils ont fait nous avons vu ce même format avant et c'est exactement la même. Vous prenez la photo que vous voulez et vous la collez dans le prochain diapositive. Assurez-vous tout simplement que ce soit la même dimension. Nous regardez l'image de truck sur cette même période. C'est vrai qu'il y a beaucoup plus de commentaires ici qu'à l'accoutumée, mais ceci va se faire. Ce diapositive qui présente la carte est très importante et permet également de travailler le logo. Et Pour moi, c'est très, très curieux de voir si la compagnie et au fil des années, cette carte, et puis nous la décrivons peut-être
in this version, and then explain it on the next slide. So you can use 2 slides if you need to use 2 slides. And so this is that same map, but it's just one piece sliced out from the middle. If you are in PowerPoint and you double click on a picture, there will be a control that pops up called crop, where you can change you can literally take out parts of the picture. Okay, remember we had a revenue stream slide. It was a little hard to read. It had a bunch of bullets. Now they're numbered. The font is bigger. It's much easier to see. And now there's a picture. There was a blank area on that slide. We just grabbed a picture of a cold room and shoved it on the right side. Here's that same competitive matrix that has been simplified down to 5 things. That's it. And the only other change here is that I asked PowerPoint for some color in this matrix to make it easier to read, made the names of the companies bigger so you can read them, made all the text bigger, and put the logo on the leftmost column so that it pops. So it stands out as a obviously we're the top left corner where we belong. Here's the team. If you remember, it was a bunch of really odd looking pictures. So I found a picture of Hervé. I think this is last time I saw him in person, but otherwise you just grab it off the internet. For the rest of the team, this is a picture I took when I was in their office. So I'm just grabbing the team slide. Again, remember the whole point of this slide is just to show that they have a team. It's not to show off everybody, but I did leave some of the words. I shrunk down the words. I did the edit on a lot of these slides. And I made the people's names in bold so that they stand out. And we don't really need the dots, but the dots were there. And just, this is again, the same exact format as those opening slides. Consistency of format is important. And then traction, instead of that long list of numbers, well, let's just take a page from Nsumbuko and throw up the most compelling numbers. And the most compelling numbers that aren't financial are 14 trucks, 10 cold rooms, 33 drivers and staff, 14,700 farmers, and 2,700 clients. I just took those numbers out of that, made the numbers bigger, and put a couple words around them to explain what they are. This is not as compelling as $500,000 or, none of these numbers are humongous, which is why there's 5 of them on the screen, but it shows that this company is making progress. And this one is much more compelling. So this is just a graph I made in Google Sheets, and it is literally the revenue numbers for each year. It's a chart of revenues, right? This company's made profits from day one, so I wanted to show that off too. So it's profits as well, but we're not even showing what the numbers are on the profits. We're just showing that they exist, right? It's good. People can ask what the profit margin is. And this is a graph of both historic revenues, because remember, this pitch deck was from like 2 months ago. So we have 2020, 2021, 2022 actuals. And I put a label here to show off in big numbers the actual revenues of 2022. And then we know from the first few months of 23 what we're expecting in 23. So plug that in as the next number. And then I made some guesses from, there was a financial model, but I made some guesses on here on what 24 was. And for 25, I just made a big round number guess. And so the trend has been, here's that growth. So, I said doubling is hard. This company more than doubled in its first full year. It then grew fourfold or fourfold in between 21 and 22, which is faster than you would expect a company to be able to do. So that's impressive. But it wasn't tenfold. And this is real. I can't complain that this is not believable because it actually happened. But then the expectation of what's going to happen this year is not fourfold. It's not going to go to 8 million. It's going to go around 5. And that's the most likely outcome. And so that's doubling, right? More or less. Actually, a little more than doubling. That's great. That's totally believable. And so if they can double this year, should be able to double or slightly more than that the next year, which is where this number comes from. And then if it can double again. Like, why not? As long as it gets enough capital, this is a big opportunity. That seems reasonable. And instead of trying to do, 19,000, blah, 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 just round it up to 20 in this case. It's 3 years out. We don't know what's going to happen. We could have done 10 and 20, and that would have been fine as well. And then finally, we get to the ask slide, and it's exactly what he had. It's just cleaned up, raising $5 million. And then line by line, what's going to happen. So in this case, we have general topics. Good example of being nice and simple. Want to grow the fleet, add some cold rooms, do some marketing, grow the territories, and we need some working capital. Okay, and what's the details on that? Grow the fleet from 14 to 55. How many cold rooms? From 10 to 30. Marketing and branding, because otherwise it's blank and doesn't look good. And in this case, here's the budget. Here's how much is going to be spent on each, which makes an investor look at this and go, okay, a little bit of money on marketing and branding. It's not $4 million on marketing. We're not hoping we find customers. What we really need is trucks. This company just needs more trucks. More trucks, more cold rooms, and a little bit of money on everything else. And then that final slide is a copy of the opening slide with the contact information, and that's it. And in this case, we could have put Hervé's name on the opening slide, but didn't at that point. And that's it. So that's what a real pitch deck looked like before this treatment and looked like after this treatment. And so to go through this one more time in more detail, because I just did that pretty quickly, you can find this online on my website /pitching. So lunarmobiscuit.com/pitching. Again, you'll get a copy of this deck. And on there, you'll find this in a few different forms. One, that slide will, this web page goes slide by slide through the Ensambuco pitch, and again, explains everything I just explained in detail. You can download the Ensambuco pitch deck and use it as a template if you want. And then I also made a podcast series where I went slide by slide verbally through each one of these slides in more detail with 5 or 6 or 10 minutes per slide to help explain it in even more detail. So if you need to hear it again in a different form, it's there online for you to do that. And with that, I will stop and answer questions. Oh, and I see Fabiana just put the URL in the chat window as well.
While we're getting questions, want to remind people, we did see some questions in the chat box. So we'll probably go to some of those, but those of you who had questions that put in the chat box, you might want to ask them live. So raise your hand using the raise the hand function. In the meantime, I also put a link to a cool poll that we have, which will just talk about some of the takeaways you have from this session so far. It will be interesting to see, for instance, ask a few questions about how many people already had a presentation, how many people who this will be their first time, asked a few questions about what you might look to do differently following this session. So this is an interesting poll to take because it's where you start to make commitments to change. And obviously change is going to bring you growth, and it can sometimes feel uncomfortable, but that is why we're here, is to do something different than we did before. I'm seeing a lot of the hands going up, and I don't know the order, so I'll probably go.
Hold on, before you call on someone.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, one in the chat window that I want to approach. Matthews Malenga asked, restoration projects are long-term, which start to make income maybe 3 to 4 years. If so, what should be added to the pitch deck? Oh, well, and we're not doing the realities of funding, I don't think, in these 12 weeks. One of the realities of funding restoration projects, we don't know any restoration funders, investors that invest with an expectation of not getting anything back in 3 years. TerraFund, which Amanda and Fabiana and Sam and I are all part of, even us as restoration funders in that project, in the for-profit side, where we're lending money to for-profits, we expect those for-profits to already have income streams. So if you're at the stage where you're putting seedlings in the ground and you don't expect to get any income from any source for the next 2 or 3 years, go look for grantors. Investors aren't going to invest in you. Yeah, not fair, but that's the way it goes. Okay, now you can call on people.
All right, now we can call on people. Perfect. I would want to go first with in reverse alphabetical. Well, yeah, reverse alphabetical order. Tunde, then Helen, then Babu, then Abel. So I'm going to write that down. But Tunde, would you like to go first?
Yes. Well done. It's a very lovely session. I gained a lot. I just want to ask, what is the maximum length for a pitch deck? Should it be 12? Should it be 10? Should it be exactly what should be the maximum? I've had some experiences where maybe the VC actually wants maybe 10 slides, 5 slides. So what is the ideal? Thank you.
Ideal is 10 to 15. If you can tell your story in 10 slides, tell it in 10 slides. If it takes 15, that's fine. Because remember when I went through it, I said like, well, if you have more detail, add another slide. But when I get a slide deck in the mail and it's 25 slides or 35 slides, I will see that. You know, you send these slide decks as PDFs. Just be clear. You don't send a PPT file or PPTX file. You send a PDF. That's the proper thing to do. When I open a PDF, you can see how many pages it is. And the second impression that a slide deck will make after the opening slide is I'll glance up to see how many pages it is, just to gear myself up. And if it's 35, I'm geared up to just send them back my link to that Luna Robiscuit /pitching. Like I'm already primed because I know something's gone wrong if it's 35 slides. So try and keep it to 15 or so.
All right, thank you.
Okay, Helen?
Thank you so much, Luni, for that great presentation. My question is, there's so many online software that you can use for presenting. I just wanted to ask, which one did you use? Was it PowerPoint? I am aware there is also Google Slides. And recently, I in my own projects, I was using Canva. So I normally have a challenge using PowerPoint because of the graphics. Maybe you could tell me which is the best to use, especially when navigating or creating content. Yeah.
There's always a new one. None of them are better than PowerPoint or Google Slides. So Google Slides and PowerPoint are the same. They do the same things. Google Slides is free. PowerPoint is not. PowerPoint is the standard. This is why Google Slides can spit out a PPT file, but PowerPoint does not upload to Google. It just makes PowerPoint the standard. Either of those is fine. Learn how to use them because they are tools that you will use in your business forever till the AIs take over and make this stuff for us. Go watch. There's plenty of tutorials online to teach you how to use it if you're having trouble with the images or anything else. And keep the format as simple as you can. So again, if you go back and you look at the format for those truck slides, I'm just using Cambria, which is one of the 2 standard fonts as the font in the whole thing. And I'm making a big image on the right that's cropped. And that's it. And the only other tools I'm using, the only other features in that whole slide deck was like bullet points and spacing of the text to make it balanced. Other than that, it's a pretty simple slide deck. For a long time, people would go and try and use Prezi or these other things that made more animations. Animations don't make your slide deck any better. They don't make it look more compelling. Focus on the story. Focus on the story and keep your slides really simple. Okay.
I think
Babu?
that's an interesting point, Luli, just to share. Prezi, maybe it seemed to be a trend or something, but getting the basics right, it's going to be much more important.
Oh, it's so the Prezi was something that my students would do. It was a new tool back when I was first teaching. I just found it to be incredibly annoying, far more annoying than useful, because ultimately what you're going to wind up doing in order to entice an investor or grantor to look at your business is you're going to send them a file in the format of PDF. And PDF doesn't do any of the animations that PowerPoint or Prezi or any of these other things do. It's just going to show pictures and text. And those of us who look at a lot of pitch decks are not going to sit through and read every word on your slide. We're going to skim and we're going to look through a 15-slide pitch deck in, if the first few slides are compelling, in 3 minutes. And if the first few slides are not compelling, 30 seconds. So you got to grab the attention of the audience in that problem slide. It has to look good, has to be simple enough to be understood in seconds, and then quickly get to a solution slide, which is compelling, which is easy to understand in a few seconds. And if that grabs the attention of the audience, then they'll slow down and look at the rest of the details. Having something like Prezi that's animating and taking 1 second to get between slides just gets in the way. So we want to be able to skim. We're going to skim. We're going to look at these things quickly, and so we need just as simplest format as possible so that it's easier to skim. Which drops to Lydia's question on the chat of how about adding videos? For something you email someone, no. For someone you email, you're gonna want to have your 2-3 minute site visit video in existence online for them to go to if the pitch deck's compelling. But in terms of within the actual pitch deck, no. If you're presenting at a pitch event, then yes, if they allow it. But in the case of a pitch event, there's only 2 ways to use video well in an onstage pitch. Doesn't work that well when you're doing it one-on-one with a crowd, but it works okay when you're literally on stage and there's a 100-person audience or bigger. The only 2 places you can use the video is, one, you can start with a video. The first thing that shows up is not you speaking, but a video speaking. That video should be under a minute. And the second that it ends, you say something. You don't leave a pause. You have to, whatever it stops, you are speaking within a second after it's done presenting. So you can put that at the beginning because you have a little more control over that timing. And the other thing you can do is a silent video with no sound that plays behind you while you're describing the product. And so for some products where it's useful to see the product in action, if you were, for instance, renting tractors to farmers or digging wells in farms, putting in boreholes, and having that be a visual behind you in video form, that's useful in a onstage pitch, but with no sound playing, so that there's no issues and no chance of there being issues of technical glitches. Every other use of video, it has too much risk that the technology fails on you, or that there's an awkward pause. If you go watch the Fledge videos, you'll see this. If you just search for Fledge on YouTube, you'll find 100 videos from fledglings. Okay, Babu.
Yes. I run a circular agribusiness that starts in the nursery, where I propagate avocado seedlings, take the seedlings to the farmers, buy the fruit from the farmers to make avocado oil, then use the waste from the oil processing, combining it with other waste in the community and environment, feeding them to black soldier flies to get larvae to be used in the livestock feeds, but also to get fertilizer to go back to the farmers' gardens. So I've had challenges making out my pitch decks, especially when I come to the slide of problem and the slide of solution. I do not know which part of the circularity of my business should I highlight so that the investor really understands. That is the first question. I do not know if it is clear. The second one
question
is
one question at a time. One question at a
Okay.
time. Yeah. So the problem is probably the problem you're solving is probably poverty. Like if you're working with smallholder farmers and you're creating incomes for the farmers, you can simply go to the problem we're solving is poverty. You could find another thing to talk about that avocado oil is solving, or but I would start with poverty and see how it feels in your mouth as you pitch that. On the solution slide, and you may want to skip it. Like these are the norms, but sometimes I said you want to stand out and be compelling. So first thing that comes to my mind for you in this business, which I've seen before, we had a company at the Land Accelerator last year that was avocados and more. Is you're a company with no waste. And so that might be the most compelling opening piece you have on slide 2, right? Opening slide with logo, and then the next slide is name of company, has no waste. And maybe that's the whole slide, and then the next one explains how. And then you literally do that with a few pictures of avocado, a bottle of avocado oil, black soldier fly larva, and a pile of compost, with labeled. And then your wording is to describe this is what you take avocados, aggregate them, and in fewer words than you said, describe all those pieces. And it may be top to bottom as opposed to circle. It may be that circle is what's getting in your way, because it's not quite a circle in that you're not just using compost to get back to avocados. There's still seedlings in the way. There's still some seeds as well. So it might be, I said, use a diagram if you need to. It may be useful to go on. Again, you can ask the AIs now to draw this or find a designer, but you want a diagram that shows the avocado, I'm picturing a sketch of an avocado fruit split into 2 parts. One part is the seed that then goes back to seedlings. So it might be seedlings, avocado fruit, that gets split into 2 parts. One goes back to the seedlings, one goes forward to be oil, to go to avocado oil, and then to black soldier flies, and then to compost, which then goes back to seedlings. And the split meets back up at seedlings. That might be more compelling, and maybe that diagram is slide 2. If it's pretty and compelling and easy to understand, boom, just drop straight there, skip the problem, go straight to solution. And as you fleshed out that story, you may wind up describing why you do this. There's a blog post I have about, it's called Problem Solution. And it's a common mistake when people are writing stories that they talk about a problem, then they talk about their solution, and then they jump back to a different problem, and then they talk about their solution again. It's not a compelling way to tell the story. And my guess is, as you flesh out your story, if you start with solution, you will wind up somewhere later in your story with problem, and then you'll know what the problem is that you can throw back into slide 2.
Okay.
Okay, you had a second question.
It is about forecasting. I would like to know whether the forecasting values should be based on an assumption that the company is growing organically, or whether the company has fundraised. Take it.
So we're going to talk about financial modeling in a few weeks. I don't know which week it is, but it's on the schedule. You will be building a financial model. If you want a successful company, build a financial model. That financial model is the one that is driving that graph in the pitch deck. And in that financial model, you're going to assume at some point that you raised money, because if you can build a financial model that succeeds without raising any money, then don't raise any money. So typically you can build two. You can build one, what happens if no one funds me? But usually people are going through this process in order to raise capital. So usually in that financial model, there's an assumption of capital.
Okay, thank you. Question 3 is about matching
Babu,
figure.
I think we should let other people have questions, and you can put your question into the chat box, just so we can be fair. We have a few other people waiting. Abel was next. Sorry about that.
Okay,
Babu. Be fair.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Luni. That was very insightful. And as one who is actually who has been working on the ground in organic farming in Zambia, I think I've learned quite so much in this space of time. So my question is, when you're doing a pitch and you have limited time, is it okay just to use pictures? And is it also okay to do comparison of, let's say, for example, you're trying to solve a problem of, like me, we do soil rejuvenation organically. So like you compare how the soil was before and how it has been built after you did what you did, like, growing cover crops and all those things. So I'm trying to ask, is it okay just to use pictures, then also put them in such a way that you're comparing the before and the after of the problem that you are solving?
Okay, so again, there's two, when we say pitch deck, there's really two different decks. There's the one you would email to someone before or after a pitch. And then there's the one that you'll present in person. In person, it's totally fine if your slides have no words on them whatsoever.
Okay.
You could be at a pitch competition or a one-on-one pitch and have no words except for the team slide that has people's names on it and the ask slide with a list of things you'll spend the money on. That's totally acceptable. But the pitch deck that you email to try and get to that meeting probably needs some words. Okay. And in terms of comparisons, yeah, if your problem is soil is degraded because of fertilizers and compost or for whatever reason, that's your problem slide. And if that's a picture of degraded land, that's totally fine.
Okay, but can they be put on one slide, or maybe they have to be on different?
It's again, if you go through your slide deck and if I asked you what is the point of this slide and you said it's to show the before and after of the soil rejuvenation, I would tell you that's 2 slides. Show before and then show after. Like, as long as you're going to show the other rule that's in the book that I didn't go through is as you're practicing your slide deck, as you're practicing your pitch, if a slide is only going to be shown for 10 seconds, you probably don't need it. So if literally in your story you were to say, the land is degraded due to fertilizers, we have a solution to that, and that fertilizer slide was going to be shown for literally that 3-4 second time period, then you don't need it at all. Then just show after, but probably you need a little bit more words for most audiences to describe why land gets degraded. And that slide will get shown for 15 or 20 seconds. And therefore it would be the slide that's being shown for the problem. And then as soon as you get to the solution, you change slides. And that contrast of brown worn out land, the worst picture you can find about degraded land, and then one that's teeming with life and nice and green, like seeing that will make may not be consciously, the audience might not be consciously aware of what that did for their emotions, but it will make them feel like you're a hero. and you're doing good things for the earth. So you want that to be 2 slides. You want that feeling to get invoked in their heart.
Okay, no, thank you so much.
I wonder if I could take a second to interrupt with some of the results. Oops, from the poll that I was working on that some people had responded to. We put the link there. I'm trying to scroll up to see if I can put the link one more time, unless people feel like answering while we go over it. So if I can work to share my screen. I just want to share some interesting insights that we had from people so far today. Okay, now I'm currently sharing my screen and I need to make it bigger. Present mode. Okay, perfect. Should be going there. Perfect. So far we had 54 people responding to the poll that we did today. And I'm looking at here, about half, this will be their first time doing their slide deck, and feel free to fill this out while we're going it. And 28 people already had a slide deck. Going to the next slide. I actually put this incorrectly. I only gave people an option to select one thing that they were going to do to improve their deck, and everybody is welcome to do many more things. But the two winnings options that we had today were to use fewer words and to refer to the provided template that we have on Restore Forward. The next big one was to create an interesting story. So thank you guys for going out there on a limb and trying something new following this session today. The next question I had was a question about confidence. How confident people felt about presenting their pitch before, after, and this is an average. So on average, people were almost at about a 3 before the presentation. After, they're feeling much more confident at a 4.4, 4.3. You can see that responses are still coming in. So thank you guys for voting. And we're glad that this has given you a little bit of a boost, a template to follow, some general guidelines. And the next question I had was how people are feeling about presenting their pitch now. We've got, I will update my pitch. I can do it. Confident, confiant, ready, knowledgeable, good, excited. So I want to thank Luni for all those opportunities. And we do have a list on the last slide of any questions that people still had remaining. And we can see if there's anything that looks interesting here, but some of them have been answered live as well. Number of slides, extra slides in the appendix. Is there a version in French?
Scroll back up. Scroll back.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Let's do some speed answers here.
Okay,
Do
speed
forecasts
answers.
have to be based on your own business financing or assumptions? Ideal finances are historic and future. And future is based on a model you're going to build, and we'll show you how in a few weeks. How long do you pitch for? Usually the audience tells you that. You don't get to choose. Sometimes it's 3 minutes and sometimes it's an hour. Is it a rule to have 12 slides? No, it's not a rule. It's just the expectation of the audience. Should you have slides in the appendix? Yes, when you're presenting in real time with someone, you should have answers to all of their expected questions already prepared as slides that you can get to in an appendix, but you should never email any of those appendix slides to anyone. How do you access financial services? I don't know that one. I don't speak French. Is it possible to do a version of in pitch in French? Upload this. I specifically gave you the slides in PowerPoint format. You can extract the ones that are the pitch, edit them a bit, and upload them to Google Slides, and I think Google will translate for you.
Yeah, Luni, we also have that in the Restore Forward. We have a French version that we created last year. So people will have your presentation as well as a template documents in French. And yes, you can always create your deck in French, but be aware of your audience. Fabiana had put this in the chat before. If your audience is going to be speaking English, if you want to figure out how to do that ahead of time, you might want to get your pitch deck translated to English. Google Translate works kind of well. You might want to think, who can you have help you present in English if that is your audience?
I saw, how do we do the rest of the business model? Chat window is the link to my books. Go to the first book and read it and answer all the questions in there, and that will help you make a business model. If we aren't generating any money, we're still in the product prototype phase. How do we convince investors we're worth investing in? Again, sorry, reality of funding, you can't. Investors don't invest in ideas anymore. That was a 1990s thing, 20th century thing. 21st century doesn't happen. You can look for grants or you can look for customers, but you can't look for investors. All my questions were answered. Thank you. Is that it?
Let me see. I'm just reading this one French one in blue to see if I can.
I don't know what convo.
That's just about it, convincing finance investors. So that's what this whole thing was about.
How do you make tree restoration projects more investor attractive? Make money. Investors like companies that make money. Actually, to be clear, make profits. Investors like companies that make profits. Why don't we emphasize? Oh, I like this question. I don't emphasize the competitor slide. Like we had it in the truck slide deck. Most of my Africa Eats companies do not have a competitor slide at all. And we don't have one because the market is so big, it doesn't matter. We're not in winner take all markets. And if we have competitors, that's fine. We're, some of them are bigger than us, some of them are smaller than us. It doesn't matter as long as the market opportunity is so big that we can all go, be in market and not compete with each other. Doesn't matter if there's competition.
I think that's a really, really interesting point, Luni, and I never actually thought about that before, that there's actually so much work to do. Do you have customers? Are you growing? That could be more
that's
important.
fine. And if they ask you, do you have competitors, you should know the answer to that. But I don't think it's worth the minute presenting in a pitch to show off a bunch of competitors. Not unless there's one like Twiga. If you're competing against Twiga in Kenya, they just got $50 million. You might get a good question of, okay, how are you going to compete against Twiga? Other than that, there really aren't. I haven't seen in the food and ag and forestry space, I haven't seen any competitors that are worth talking about. I mentioned AIs for logos. I don't know, just Google. There's a ton of them now. I haven't tried any yet, but I just keep seeing examples online.
I know one that I've tried before. It's called Taylor Brands. It's basic, but it takes about 3 minutes and it's customizable. So I'll put that in the chat when I'm done sharing the screens.
Graphs, I'm just using Google Sheets. These days, the Google Sheet graphs are prettier than the Excel graphs. And those were specifically those are area graphs I used in the truck pitch. And I do the same thing for Africa Eats. I just use area graphs.
Area graphs. Okay.
As opposed to bar charts or line graphs, they're called area. They fill in the bottom under the line. And they pick nice colors, and it just takes a few minutes. If you don't know how to use them, go to YouTube, ask for a tutorial in making graphs in Google Sheets. There's probably 100 of them. The pitch design is sitting on the Restore Forward Mighty Networks website. What's Don's le problem?
Within the problem and the solution. Yeah, anybody else better at French than me?
Yeah, it says in the problem and the solution, can the image be used, and is the caption or explanation next to the image or below it, or it doesn't matter?
There's no one answer. There is no one format. You will have both on the Mighty Networks download. You'll have the Nsumbuko slides, and you'll have the truck slides, and they're in totally different formats, and they're totally both fine. What you should just notice between the two of them is that they're not PowerPoint templates. They don't have any swooshes and lines and coloring around. They're just white background or black background with the opposite, with white or black text. And they have images that tend to go from edge to edge. And that's it. Let me show real quick.
Oh yeah, let me stop sharing. I think that's fine.
Yeah, let me just pull this up real quick. I'm not going to upload this one to Mighty Networks, but I do want you to see like one more. And I'll do this one. No, not Africa Trees. Africa Eats. Africa Eats 5. Like literally, I run a company too. That happens to be an investing company, but it's still a company. Here's my pitch deck. It's a picture of a field in Uganda. It doesn't even have my name on it because sometimes my partner pitches it. Here's a problem. It's hunger. Most people are farmers. Here's a second problem, poverty. Here's our solution. We invest in supply chain companies. 3 things about what we do. Here's a business model, high level, more detail, graph, trend. Like this isn't going to follow that 15 slide deck because this is an investment company, but it's still telling the story. But here's my graph. This is an area chart made in Google Sheets, another version of it. Pictures of all my not all, pictures of a bunch of my companies. The point of this slide is to explain that it's just everyday foods. And then those swooshes show up. Company after company and their growth. Team slide. There's 3 of us. There's pictures. There's more pictures of more people. Point of this slide is I'm the only one who's not African. And there's a team. A little bit of our bios in there. Here's where we're going. This is our actuals and our projections. And then this part, the reason it's all colored weirdly, and I had to do, you won't get Google to do this for you. I did this in Photoshop. But the reason that's there is literally to match this graph right here. That is this graph. Pasted into the trend. And then I have 3 graphs that show growth. 1, 2, 3. Ask slide. We are raising $7 million. In this case, instead of saying how much I have closed, I've talked about how much I've already raised to date, and then use of funds. Ending slide. Looks like the first one, except it has my contact information. Well, same format, different picture. And then I have one slide at the end. I said no appendix slides. This one just happens to be sitting here because I usually are doing this over Zoom and I need to leave something up on the screen while we're talking. And I thought this is a nice, compelling slide to just leave on the screen. It's got a lot of logos. It looks pretty. And I just literally just sit here until they ask me a question. And then I'll flip to a different slide. So I do this for real. This is not for fun. This is for real.
And we had a question. Thanks, Anais, for bringing it to attention in the chat box. Is it compulsory to pitch for the top 15? So I've got a couple of answers to that. Everybody here who's joining us every week, is taking attendance, putting in as much as they can to get out of this program something different, something better for their business. So when we have the application form to go to phase 2, which will be where we will be selecting 15 companies, we are requiring people to have that site visit video, this 12 to 15 slide pitch deck, and as well as a working website. So those are the things that are required in addition to the application form. Everybody who wants to be considered for the top 15 should be filling that out. Everybody who might not want to make it to the top 15 or might not be able to, if you don't complete one of those 3 requirements, it's going to be okay. However, we encourage everybody to do it because why not put your hat in the ring because you were selected to be here. So why not make yourself available to be selected to come with us to Malawi this year? I wonder if there's any other input from Luni on that topic.
Yeah, my expectation is that if you want to be in Malawi and be a top 15 finalist, that you will have all these things done, and you will have not just have them done and submitted, but you will have them done and iterated on, once or twice and then submitted. None of these things are, especially pitch decks. The pitch deck I just showed you is like the 50th iteration of that pitch deck. That if I went back and went to my records and found the first pitch deck for Africa Eats from 2018, which is when it first got built, it's not going to look anything like it does now. I literally go and change that pitch deck about once a quarter. Something gets changed in there once a quarter, whether it's a new picture, whether I'm picking a different, highlighting a different company and tweaking the one of those up and to the right graphs, whether I'm adjusting the financial model, which gets done about 3 or 4 times a year. I am constantly making it better. And so I'm not expecting if you're going to submit the first draft for a Lilongwe, you should not be expected to get picked. You should be submitting your second or third draft.
Oh, and I also have an update. We actually have program requirements that everybody does complete these pitch presentations and everything in order to be valid. So sorry about that. So we have our program requirements that I'm putting into the chat box right there. Thank you so much, Fabiana, for referring me to documents that we've actually created and passed out. This program requirements are on Restore Forward, or will be added to Restore Forward as well. So everybody has to do it. So do it. Thanks.
Well, you don't have to. You don't have to do it this year. If this is feeling overwhelming and you're just not ready, or some of the people who don't have revenues yet, once you're in this program, you can submit some in a future year. So you could say next year instead.
Well, we are asking people to actually create a PowerPoint presentation in order for the innovation grants to come through.
There's that too, yes.
Yeah, so if you don't do it, then you don't get an innovation grant. So you don't have to do anything, but if you want to complete the program, you'll complete the program requirements, and we've listed those in the chat box as well. And this can just be a starting point for everybody anyhow. So that sounds perfect. Let's see. I think we got all the questions with the people with their hands raised answered. If I'm wrong, let me know. And Fabiana, Anais, if there were any other questions that we might have missed, let us know. So while we're checking on the questions, I just wanted to say from now on, what we hope to do then is we hope that you guys will start improving or making your slide decks. Again, you'll find these templates on Restore Forward. You'll find the recording of this presentation on Restore Forward, so you can refer back to anything that you want. And also in the coming sessions, at the end of our program, we will take anywhere from 15 to 20 or 30 minutes, depending on how many people are interested, to listen to people give their pitch. So we're going to have many opportunities for people to give pitches throughout this entire time. Some people are asking for the attendance link. We've put it in many times. I do want to remind you, it is important to fill out the attendance link. We also do cross-reference it with the amount of time that you've spent in the session during Zoom. So we've got all of these things. So if you've just showed up here and you're randomly asking for the attendance sheet, we put it in the chat box many times throughout our program. We'll do it again, but we are going to cross-reference it with how much time you've spent in here, just to know that we take attendance seriously, just so everybody knows that. But we want to thank Luni for an awesome time. We want you guys to be able to start making your pitches. You can start to post your pitches on Restore Forward on the May 30th session link as a comment. So anybody can start to look at your pitches if you'd like to share that. It's very open-ended. We would like to invite people in any of our future Tuesday and Thursday sessions to have your pitch deck ready and be ready to share a 3-minute pitch, 3 to 5 minute pitch with everybody for their feedback, and just to get more confidence, more fluency in giving your pitch. I think that's the big message of the day. Luni, I think, would you like to answer any other questions or close up for here?
I put my LinkedIn in the chat window. So I don't check the Restore Forward very often, and there's just too many messages there for me to catch up with. If you would like my personal feedback on your pitch, go follow me on LinkedIn. Send me your pitch once we're linked. And don't expect 24-hour service. It will take me a while to get back to you, but I will get back to you with some feedback.
And just one more thing, someone was asking for the deadlines. When are the video and pitch due? We have that written on our syllabus, so you can refer to it, and I'll need to refer to it as well because I don't remember it off the top of my head. But we do have that written in our syllabus, and let's go down and check it so I can give you guys an answer. We are having submission deadline July 25th. So we have not opened anything for our applications yet. When we open our applications, don't worry, we will be sure to take you through all the questions here as a group. But just so you can have it in your mind, you need to submit your applications by Sunday, July 25th. We selected Sunday so that you can have the weekend to work on it as well. So we have not opened our applications yet, but knowing the 3 deliverables and what they are, you can start working on them anytime, getting your website working, this pitch deck, and a site visit video. And perhaps with that, probably want to pass back to Samuel for just some closing remarks. And, we will see you guys on Thursday. We're putting together some speakers for our peer group session, and we'll also be able to take our first volunteers who might want to share their pitch with us. So I think Rowan was saying he had a pitch in Germany from his last presentation. So Rowan, maybe you can volunteer on Thursday if you're going to be there. But we can take volunteers ahead of time, or you can just show up and let us know in the beginning that you would like to volunteer. Samuel.
Thank you so much, Amanda, and thank you so much, Luni, for this session. As I earlier said, is one of my best sessions, certainly, because it builds the backbone of this program, and looking forward to see what people will be able to develop. As Luni did mention, we are happy to support you, so feel free to share with any member of our team, Amanda, Fabiana, myself, Rekia, Anais, and we are happy to actually support you in the process. So we'll have quite a lot of presentation in the coming days. So the good stuff to do is actually start and then be sharing with the team here, and we'll be able to provide the inputs. Otherwise, thank you so much, and looking forward to meeting you on Thursday for the peer-to-peer session. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Have a great day. And thanks to our interpreters, Alex and Patrick, who've made this session amazing for some of the folks who are speaking primarily French. Really appreciate your time. And thank you to Luni. And we'll see you guys all next week or next Thursday. Thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you for now. Bye.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
See you on Thursday.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.